Welcome to our first Exponential Race to the Top sessions, co-produced by our long-standing partner, the Exponential Roadmap Initiative. The transport sector is a big source of greenhouse gas emissions and other harmful gases and particles. In this session, we will focus on personal transportation and how to scale the adoption of the solutions, which are electric vehicles. And our guests for this session is Fredrika Klarén, Head of Sustainability at Polestar, and Johan Falk, co-founder and head of the Exponential Roadmap Initiative. Welcome, both of you. Johan Falk, why do we need to scale up solutions to phase up fossil fuels? And where are we in the exponential curve for electric vehicles right now?
Thanks, and it's great to be here, Marcus. In order to phase out fossil fuels, we need to focus on scaling up the solutions exponentially. And the electrical vehicles is really a great example of exponentials. What you can see here is countries on this electrical vehicle curve, which represent percentage of sales of rechargeable cars. As you can see, Norway is really an outlier. It's close to 100% in terms of electrical vehicles, which is quite amazing. Mm-hmm. Sweden, Denmark, Netherlands, China are rapidly scaling up. And then we have a number of countries which are lower on the curve. But all are basically following the same curve, but with different speeds. I'll show you here Ethiopia, which I think is a very exciting example, because it basically shows that countries can leapfrog. They don't have to pass the fossil economy. They can't go directly to electrical vehicles. And this is very much related to strong policy like IEC import bans and other strong policies, which shows that this is possible.
Johan, just a few days ago, the Financial Times wrote that electric vehicle ownership has now reached a tipping point that signals an irreversible shift away from petrol cars, not only in China, but also in parts of Southeast Asia and Europe. So what is the global outlook overall?
Yes, we have definitely passed what we called the positive tipping point for personal electrical vehicles. And you can always argue, where is that positive tipping point? It's basically a point where we get self-sustaining feedback loops, and we enter into what we call a race to the top, where countries and companies race to actually develop the market as quickly as possible, racing together. And we state that it could be around 20%. And we are globally now at around 25% of new car sales. So we passed that. If you look at the global outlook, if we're following that exponential trajectory, which you can see on this particular slide, and which is absolutely viable because you can see how fast companies actually can go on the left side. We could reach what we call the crossover point, where we achieve 50% within 5 years, actually. So that is not unrealistic as far as we see it. And this will have a tremendous impact on the carbon emissions, because you would have the following curve, of course, for the fossil cars going down towards zero. So up to 2050, we could basically avoid with this trajectory between 40 to 50 gigatons of carbon emissions. So that's amazing. So it's all about pushing the exponential trajectories so as much to the left as possible.
Yeah. Over to you now, Fredrika. You work for the all-electric car company Polestar, and I know that you just released your sustainability report. So I would like to ask you, what can you highlight from that report, and also what reflections you have of the curves that Johan has just showed?
Well, thank you so much, and so interesting to hear your take on this, Johan. at Polestar, we know and have known for a long time that electric cars are as close to a silver bullet that we have to really decarbonize the automotive industry and to secure that we move towards a sustainable, just and climate neutral way of moving about with cars. And we show this in numbers. I mean, we are Europe's only pure electric brand. We are still fairly young, but what we have achieved in the last couple of years is amazing. I mean, we are now scaling to the point where we are reaching 60,000 cars in sales on an annual level. We have been able to launch 4 pure EVs in the last 5 years to the market, while also decoupling that growth from climate impact. In the sustainability report that we launched today, we detail how we have reduced our greenhouse gas emissions per sold car with 31%, while increasing sales with 505% since 2020. So I think that what we are able to really insert in the global narrative is a very hopeful and inspiring message. And not only a message, but clear, tangible products that the consumers today, can tap into. And if you look at a Polestar car, and I'm super biased, of course, but it is truly a marvel of great design. It is fun to drive, and also it has a positive climate impact. You avoid emissions from switching to the EV, and you also buy from a brand who is trying to decouple growth from climate impact. But I mean, we are in a very weird context, even though we have this silver bullet in our industry, and we are at the inflection point in terms of sales. The narrative is being diluted. That narrative is being diluted, and I think that has to do with the fact that companies have invested and are still very vested in legacy technology, and now they are trying to push back. They're trying to hinder and slow down progress to keep short-term earnings. So what is so important now to really pull this lever that we can do to transition away from fossil fuels, which is the topic of today, we need to come to the consumers with a very clear message. They are here, they are receptive, they are switching, but if we're going to scale it up even more, we're going to have to combat the current disinformation and be inspiring and super clear towards consumers. And that I want the policymakers to help us in.
Yeah. We did see kind of a backlash in Europe a few years ago with the German car makers facing a lot of problems. But now, with the current energy crisis in the Middle East, you can also read every week about how in various countries EV sales are rapidly scaling. Are we seeing a more permanent shift in consumer demand now? With the energy volatility that we're seeing?
Yeah. Even before the Iran war broke out, I mean, we have been seeing this steady support from consumers. They want this shift, but they are not being represented in the right way by certain policymakers or industry players. But I mean, we're seeing now how they are responding to the rising oil prices. For example, well, in March in EU, the EV sales rose with 51% during that month alone. And I mean, we're seeing also how this is impacting the total cost of ownership for our customers. For example, a Polestar 4 in Germany has 72% of the costs compared to a fossil fuel car for the owners of that car. So, I mean, this is just another example of how this technology is proven to be a way for us to create a more resilient and stable and safe situation for car consumers and, for the energy transition as a whole. We haven't even gotten into the issue of, how we can enable short-term energy storage going forward with our products, and how they can, support a renewable energy grid, whereas e-fuels, for example, would deplete it even more. So, lots to talk about there.
You mentioned policy. So what do you need from countries and, in your case, also a region like the EU to scale even faster?
We need to use the levers that the countries that Johan just spoke about have utilized. Those are still relevant. We need to support consumers of all wallet sizes to make the shift. So clear incentives, bonus schemes, and that will really enable a lot of the progress. That is what we are hearing is most needed. Of course, we need to secure that the infrastructure around electric cars also will be scaled. For example, the charging grids. But I would say that the most important thing now is sending this clear message to consumers, and then we need public support in terms of incentive schemes.
Johan, reflection of what Fredrika has just said.
I think really we are in a point now when we will see an incredible ramp up of volumes, I think, which is very good news for basically the producers. I think it will go incredibly fast because we come to that particular point where the products are amazing and coming down in price. We also have the second-hand market, which is growing. And that the case for the consumers is now incredibly good as far as I see it. So I think that is what we can expect, which is very, very positive news as far as I see it. I also think electrical vehicles are so important for the complete, transformation to what we call an earth-aligned economy, because renewable energy and electrical vehicles are basically the two areas which are on an exponential pathway. And as you mentioned, Fredrika, it will drive also the next row of electrical trucks, of course, coming a bit after electrical vehicles, but can basically draw on the same theory of change, as well as strengthening the energy grids and balancing the energy grids, which are quite untapped so far. So it's also really important not just to shift out the fossil cars, but actually to trigger the other solutions to go faster.
Yeah. We will unfortunately have to round up this session very, very quickly. One final question to each of you. If you could name one key ask, key thing that needs to happen to keep accelerating this race to the top, what would it be? Start with you, Fredrika.
To share the hopeful story around EVs. People will respond if we start talking in a positive way about the climate impact of electric cars and how they are simply a better choice. Instead of trying to spread doom and gloom, we have to really take the opportunity of now, in an honest and truthful way, we can actually say that this is a success story.
Johan?
And I would just echo that. I worked a lot with telephony, and at a certain point, people argue that don't need mobile phones, but it's following the same trajectory, where we all need mobile phones and we phased out the fixed phones. It's exactly the same thing. And I think we are at the point now, by spreading good, positive stories, we can accelerate and reach that curve that I actually showed previously, which will be absolutely unstoppable. So it's a great opportunity, I think, for Polestar, but also other manufacturers which has to step up and move faster. Yes.
Johan and Fredrika, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you.